Are you an original or are you a copy? Now, I'm not really trying to talk shit. There's good and bad in both. But think about it. And be honest with yourself. Are you an original type person or are you a copy? Now, most people would probably rush to say that they're an original. Most people are not original. They might have their moments of originality, but really it's kind of easier for most people to just copy. And like I said, I'm not saying anything good or bad. I'm not trying to talk shit. I'm just stating that there is good and bad in both. So think about it like this. Let's say you're an original person. What makes you original? You just can't say you're original and not do no original shit. So what makes you original? Is it how you talk, how you walk, what you do, what you think about, who you fuck with? I mean, you gotta think about it a little bit. Like I'm saying, you shot out there with the answer, I'm original. What makes you original? Show me something original. Now, like I said, there's good and bad in both. So part of the good in being original is that not that you stand out, it's that you're authentic. So if you know me, your boy Diversified, if you've seen any of my videos, you know I'm a Sigma male. I call myself a Sigma male. I identify with a lot of Sigma male type traits. I don't even necessarily know if I believe in the shit, but I know what I do, and I know there's certain things that I do that are quote unquote Sigma male-ish. And so I really value, me personally, I value authenticity. So, and I think most people do value authenticity deep down, but more on surface level is, you know, not authenticity. It's whatever's, whatever works, whatever's the flavor of the month. But when you're original, it's a combination of you being either the first one or at least you being authentic. So even if you weren't the first one to do it, didn't matter. I was first up here. I was first here. I didn't do it to copy anybody else. The shit just came out of me, and this is what it was. So it's authentic. And so that's part of the good of it, is that there are some people who put a high premium on authenticity. There's a lot of other people who don't, but I think deep down, most of us do put some value on what's authentic. It's either what we love about you or what we hate about you. I know. But, also part of the good of being original is that perhaps somewhere down the road, and you don't do this for these reasons, but perhaps somewhere down the road, you may not have got no love, but somewhere down the road, someone is like, oh shit, that was you? You made that? You put that together? I mean, you think about how many records was made. Maybe didn't get any love, didn't get a whole lot of spin, didn't get a whole lot of airplay. And then you got these young boys and girls, black and white and brown, going through these record crates, going through these, piles of records, and out of curiosity, putting them on and hearing some original shit that blew their mind, that they then said, I need to sample that shit. How is that any different than someone tasting something and being like, oh shit, that's some of the best pudding pie I've ever had. I gotta take that and then put a twist on it. If you go do most of your history, there's so much shit that's been sampled that someone came up with something original. Maybe it hit, maybe it didn't hit. And then down the road, someone is like, that's some of the best shit that I've ever seen, and I need to be a part of it. So that links to what I'll mention about being, if you're a copy. So there's some good shit about being an original. Some of the bad shit about being an original, and once again, I know, or I feel like I know, is that a lot of times you don't get the love that a copycat would get. Because a copycat went, and they didn't just find something original, something obscure that doesn't resonate. They found something that was original that moves you, and they decided to incorporate it. Good and bad, and I'm not talking shit, but they decide, like, you know what? That recipe, if I add a little something to it, I'm on it. That's me. And so the bad part is the original might be like, man, 80% of that shit is me. You getting all this love, you making all this bread, you getting this notoriety, and 80% of what you put together is me, maybe even more. That's some bullshit. It is what it is. Another part of the bad thing of being original is a lot of times you have to be kind of like in your own space and place and to come up and create and produce this originality. And within that space and place, if you're not fucking with people that's on the same rhythm you are, on the same vibe, at the same level, I'll get back with you. I'll hang with you, in a little bit when I'm done or tomorrow or something. I need my space, my, office. I need my canvas so that I can put something together. And if you're not on that same wavelength, you're going to fuck my shit up. And I can't have you fucking my shit up. So part of the bad thing about being an original is that you have bouts and moments of like solitude. And it may be, yeah, I need to be alone. Get the fuck on. I'll holler at you later. Or it may be like, hey, I didn't tell you to leave. I'm just kind of in my zone. Like, come be in it with me. But that's part of the in and out, the yin and the yang of being an original. Now, the flip side of that coin, being a copycat. I don't want a copycat. That's a bad term. Just someone who copies. Why do you copy? You got smoke on that one. Because that's a deep thought. Why do you copy? There's multiple reasons. I won't get into all of them. But some of the bigger, major ones are, you copy because you saw something that was sweet. You saw something that hit you and you want to now spin it out to the rest of the world. There's nothing necessarily bad about that. It's a compliment. Or they say flattery, imitation is the biggest form of flattery. But why did you copy? Because you saw something, you heard something, you felt something, moved you, and now you want to move other people. Also, sometimes the reason why people copy, I noticed this with a friend of mine, a real good friend of mine, but I was like, oh, that's interesting, is that he kind of confessed he doesn't really have a whole lot of original thoughts. He likes to see what's working for other people, and then see if that can work for him and then implement it. Now, on a certain level, that's smart. That's smart. You see a bunch of people jump into this water and don't come out, you figure, I'm going to copy that and jump in the water? No, you look at that and you say, yeah, I don't fuck with that. But if you see a bunch of people jump in the water and they swim and they have a good time, then you be like, oh, I guess on a certain level, it's smart. But he at least admitted to me, like, look, I like to see what's working for other people because it's hard for me to come up with new shit. So he could admit he didn't have the originality gene in him. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I said, there's people who went through these record piles, went through these crates and found these records, these original records, from way before their time, and heard something and felt something, and then said, let me use this, let me sample this. And from that came something that moved people and set in motion, further acts of copying, but also originality. So, it's a beautiful thing. It can be a beautiful thing, but you copied either because you saw something that moved you, or you copied because, hey, it worked for someone else, and I don't really have anything off the top of my head that I know would work for me. So the good part about copying is you don't have to spend so much time like an original person does trying to reinvent the fucking wheel every single fucking time. It's beauty and it's magic when you can do it. But in the meantime, you're almost in a certain agony at trying to find this originality. Whereas the person who's a copier, they don't have that agony. Not at all. Not at all. They look, hey, something eventually will pop up. I'll finally be looking the right sources and something will come up and then they'll be like, oh yeah, let me use that. And if you look at a lot of things, especially in the last, say, 40 years, if you look at a lot of Gen Xer, if you look at a lot of popular popular things in the broader culture, they've been sampled. Somebody did an original, and then somebody was moved by it, and then somebody used most of it but put a little twist to it, and then that became the new shit. And most people never really knew where the original came from. Some do, and that's part of what connected them to it. Did you know this? This is for the Gen X crowd, maybe some of the millennials. Did you know, and I'm going to do a video on MTV, on early MTV. I keep promising I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a video on early MTV and why I hate and yet have some love for early MTV. But for the Gen X millennial crowd, did you know this? You remember from early MTV, the I want my MTV, I want my MTV, I want my MTV. And everyone was like, oh, it's the young kids and teenagers yelling to their parents to go to the cable operators and get cable, get MTV for their household. The originality of that campaign goes back to the 1950s. There was a commercial in the 1950s, I can't remember the exact year, 57 or something. There was a product being sold called Maypo, Maypo. And there's this kid, maybe no older than 4, and he's just cranky and like privileged and just always yelling about what he wants. And so most of the time it's this guy, his father's uncle, I don't know who the fuck he is. He's watching him, and the kid's like, I want my Maypo. I want my Maypo. And he keeps getting ignored. Then at some point in time, he's like, I want my Maypo. That's where they got that from. It's a copy. But for Gen X generation, and like I say, some older millennials, we grew up with, I want my MTV, I want my MTV, and we associated it with us. Shit was 30 years before us. So there's a certain power in the copier because they don't have to live with the agony of trying to reinvent the wheel, trying to create fresh water every fucking time creatively. They can just go maybe back 10, 20, 30 so years, look at what connected with people, connected to today. There's a certain magic and originality in that. So I'm not talking shit. Like I said, there's love on both sides. But they can take that, cut through the bullshit, find something that works back then, repurpose it, recalibrate it for now, and then see how the people feel about it now. See if it's digestible. Advertising, which I know a little bit about advertising. Advertising does the fuck out of that. I use it a little bit. You shouldn't ignore that. You should incorporate. You should do a little bit of sampling. Now, the bad part of being a copy is that you have to wait. You are at you weren't a hostage to the agony of creating something original, but now you're a hostage to waiting to see what other people think. Did they like it? Should I sample it? You didn't like? Oh, wait, no. An original doesn't generally an original doesn't generally give a fuck about what the people think. This is something that they had to get out of them. Now, maybe they think that people will like it. Maybe they think that people should like it. But really, it was about them. It's a fucking vanity project, even though they wanted to share it with the world. And yet, they're not hostage to what the world thinks. They're hostage to the creative process inside of them. The copier cares about what the world thinks. I'm not copying bullshit. I got to copy, even if it was something that was quirky and unappreciated back in the day, I want it to be appreciated now. So I am hostage to what the people think. And I am hostage to what work has been produced that I can then sample from. So it's good and bad in both. And I think, as I stated in the beginning of the video, most people rush to say that they're original. But you should probably take some time to really think about it. And like I said, there's good and bad. We read, we watch, we experience, we take in a certain knowledge from other people, and we incorporate it into our lives, into our actions. It's human nature. It's only smart to continue to incorporate knowledge. So if I see you do some dumb shit, and I decide not to copy it, that's smart, right? But if I see you do some smart shit and I decide to copy it, that also is smart. You know, so we learn from other people. We learn from other experiences. We copy all the time. But are there any moments? Is there a slant? Is there really something in you that yearns to do something original? That doesn't want to just do what everyone else does. Doesn't want to just like what everyone else likes. Doesn't want to identify with everything else that other, you get where I'm going? They have to, whatever it is that they like, whatever it is that they're attracted to, it wasn't because of y'all. So, but once again, like I said, there's nothing bad with, you know, identifying other people's experiences and incorporating that into your own. That's only fucking smart. So this is your boy, Diversified, out here, mixing the original with the sample. What they say on LL Cool J's Serious Music channel. Appreciate the sample. Recognize the sample or some shit like that. Go listen. Talk about original. And yet, there was people that inspired him. So you can be original and yet be inspired by other people's experiences and other people's flavor. So this your boy, Diversified. Got my own flavor. Time for me to share it with the world. I'll get back with y'all.